Tony Farina. Last name is spelled C-A-R-E-N.
Thank you. Deputy, how are you employed?
I'm employed by the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
And what is your position?
I'm a deputy sheriff.
How long have you been in that role?
I've been employed by the Monroe County Sheriff's Office for approximately 5 years.
Did you have law enforcement experience prior to that?
I did. I worked for the Erie Township Police Department for approximately 4.5 years, and then the Swan County Sheriff's Office for
Is that the extent of your law enforcement experience?
Yes.
All told, how long have you been in law enforcement?
almost 10 years.
Do you hold all the training, education, certification necessary to be a police officer in the state of Michigan?
I do.
Were those up to date on April 20th, 2024? Were you on duty on April 20th of 2024?
I was.
What was your assignment on that day?
I was assigned to the road patroller that day.
And at some point on that day, were you dispatched to Swan Boat Club?
I was.
Do you recall what that dispatch was?
The dispatch was for a vehicle that had crashed into the side of the Swan Boat Club. While I was en route there, we were notified that at least one child was deceased.
And what did you observe when you arrived at the Swan Boat Club?
It was very chaotic. Multiple law enforcement agencies were there, multiple fire departments, lifestyle trying to land. Law enforcement was trying to corral, witnesses and victims together. It was just very chaotic.
Did you inside the boat club?
Eventually I did.
How did you enter the boat club?
I entered through the hole that was on the side of the boat club.
That is the hole that Gabriel created?
That's correct.
And what did you observe when you went inside the boat club?
Tables and chairs were kind of thrown about. The bar area looked like it was damaged, and there was also a vehicle against one of the walls.
How did you come to interact with the defendant?
I was tasked with going to interview her.
What did you do at this point?
I went to a patrol car that the defendant was in and proceeded with the interview.
And so you spoke to the defendant?
I did.
Did you observe any signs of intoxication?
Well, I observed the odor of intoxicants coming from the back of the vehicle, the back of the patrol car, and I also observed that the defendant had bloodshot eyes.
And so what did you do next?
I interviewed the defendant.
Are you issued a body-worn camera?
I am.
And was it functional and operational on that day?
It was.
Did you have an opportunity to review that footage?
I did.
And is it a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw on that day?
It is.
And the video that we are going to proffer to the jury, it has been edited.
It has.
Was that to remove anything that's inadmissible in the court today?
That's correct.
To your knowledge, was that edited about 70 seconds or so?
Yes.
And you didn't turn the camera off during that time, correct?
My camera was not on.
So your camera was active, it was simply needed for today's footage.
That's correct.
Judge, at this point, I'm going to move to admit and proffer to the jury exhibit 7.
Just go ahead, Sean.
These are the handcuffs, I gotta review this, okay? You have the right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have her present while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you for any question you wish. You can decide at any time to exercise your rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. Do you understand what I just read to you?
Yes.
Okay, do you wish to speak to me?
Pardon?
Do you wish to speak to me, or do you want to,
No, I'm good.
like, do you want to talk or not?
I'm just hoping no one was hurt.
Sure. So can I talk to you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Run through the medications that you told me about again.
Gabapentin, I have a whole list of medications. I don't have them on me right now.
Do you list the medications in the file?
No.
Okay. Okay, so what happened today? Where were we at today?
I went to lunch with some friends.
Okay, about what time was that?
Noonish.
Okay, so remember you went to lunch. Remember what you ate?
Yeah, I had some chili and a fish sandwich.
Fish sandwich? Okay. Where was that at?
At Burns.
At Verna's? What did you drink? Did you water, pop?
I had a glass of wine.
Just one glass of wine?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so you had one glass of wine at Verna's. After that, what happened? So you leave at noon, where do you go?
Came home.
Okay.
I just live right down the street.
Okay. What's your address?
6260.
69 Bexar? Okay. So you get home, what do you do when you get home?
I just came home and just kind of chilled out and was waiting for my husband to get up and take a nap.
Okay. Did you drink anything else there? Did you drink
No, I didn't even get a drink down here because I never made it this far.
when did you take your,
8 o'clock.
8 a.m.?
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that chili and fish, is there anything, did you eat anything else today?
No.
Okay. Okay, and then where were you driving to?
Just from Furnace to here.
To here? What were you coming here for?
Home.
Oh, you're so you're from Furnace to home?
Yeah.
And you left Furnace at noon?
Yes.
Okay. But then you said you come home first?
I'm home here.
Oh, okay, so you were trying to go from Furnace to home?
Yes.
How long were you at Furnace then?
Maybe an hour, not even that long.
Okay, so you made no stop between Furnace and here?
No.
And when did you go to Furnace again?
About noon.
About noon, okay. Okay, do you remember what happened when you were going around here?
No, not really. I pulled into the parking lot and I thought I was driving up to the boat club and evidently I was driving right to the pavilion.
Which direction did you go?
I live right down the street.
Okay, so you were coming from that way?
Yes.
This way? When you got to the parking lot, what happened?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you think there's a reason you don't remember? Did something happen or?
You know what? I have these seizures and
Okay. Do you have anything where it says like maybe that, you know, are your doctors ready to drive and everything?
I'm clear to drive now, and I don't have my purse with me, but I do have a card in my purse.
Like, when's the last time you had a seizure that you know of?
March.
In March? Okay. So in March is the last time you remember that you had a seizure.
Yes.
Sorry, did you be hospitalized for it?
Yes.
You were?
Yes.
Okay, was it did you have like at home or something?
No, I was in Monroe for 4 days and Toledo for 6 days.
So did you have a seizure while you were at home? Or did you have
I had it at home, and then I did have one when I was in the hospital.
when you were in the hospital? Okay. And March is gonna be the last time you had that seizure?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do you think, is your normal behavior when you have a seizure, is it, have lapses of memory?
Yes.
Okay. So once you got to the parking lot, you don't remember it?
I don't.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all the questions I have for you now. Deputy Schmidt's gonna take it over from here, okay? Is there, so on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being like you're stone cold sober, you can drive perfectly, 10 being you're passed out drunk, where do you think you're at right now? A 7? Okay. Do you think you're okay to drive?
I wouldn't drive.
You would let you drive?
No.
Okay. Okay, just give me 1 second, okay? Sorry, my phone's ringing, I think it's gonna be my boss.
Okay.
I apologize.
Again, move to get these proposed exhibit 7.
I'm sorry, you didn't know that, all right, I didn't hear. Case 7 is admitted.
Deputy, do you acknowledge your time stamp and date stamp on that, correct?
It is correct.
I have no further questions, Judge, thank you.
Cross.
Officer, did you have a chance to follow up on my client and her medical records? Were you aware that she had a doctor's appointment in March of 24?
I was not.
Were you aware that the last episode of having a seizure was October 23?
Objection, I receive facts out of evidence.
Were you aware? That's all I asked. You need a refund.
Judge, if he wants to testify, he can call, he can be a witness, and not an attorney, he can't vote.
I'm asking you the question if he is aware.
You can ask the question.
Sir,
Objection.
thank you. Yes, were you aware that my client, the last episode was October 23, after having a seizure?
I was not.
When you were investigating as the case was shown, were you aware that my client had gone through the Swan Boat Club? She went through the Swan Boat Club building. You're investigating it?
I was.
Okay, so were you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. And were you aware that her vehicle 125 feet in the building, approximately?
I was.
And do you consider, with all of your experience over the years, that that's a major accident?
I would consider that a major accident. Or, I'm sorry, a major crash.
Thank you. When you asked my client on the tape there that was recorded, well, let me strike that back up. How long after the crash do you believe you interviewed my client on that tape?
I couldn't give an exact time, but that would be an estimate.
Do you mind an estimate?
I'd say about 30 minutes, probably 20 to 30 minutes.
About 20 to 30 minutes after that crash, correct?
Correct.
That was commercial, I was the sound machine. that they might not have all their faculties together as you and I sit here calling and talking, just in your experience?
They can have
And would you agree that when you ask them, are you okay to drive? If you ask her, are you okay to drive because of the collision? Are you okay to drive because your vehicle's 25 feet in the building? Did you ask her any of that?
I just asked her if she was,
Okay.
she's okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But we heard it. I just want to confirm it, if there was any other conversation. Is that, so you agree what we heard is true? Is the only conversation you had with her about his driving? And are you okay to drive?
I think it was a follow-up question to the scale that I gave her. I was here for that.
All right. And when you said on a scale of 1 to 10, do you think you should have waited a little bit longer than 20 minutes or 30 after this major crash occurred to wait till somebody that you would have settled down your thought process maybe better, and then answer questions? Do you think that might be hindsight from your collision crashes that you investigated? Would have been better to sort of wait a little bit longer than right afterwards?
At the time when I was speaking to the defendant, in the court car, she seemed like she had collected herself after the crash.
And she seemed like she was sober, right?
No.
She seemed like she collected her thoughts. I didn't hear any swearing. Did you hear any swearing?
There was no slurring speech, but.
Okay, that's my question. I just want, there were no swearing, am I correct? We all heard it. Okay. And you said that she had collected her thoughts after she just went through this building. You felt she had collected her thoughts, right? I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
Debbie, when you were speaking with the defendant, she seemed shaken up to you. Is slurring of speech the only sign of intoxication?
No, that's just one of the general indicators of intoxication right there.
In your experience, how many years have you been an officer?
5 to 10 years.
Do you have any idea how many drug driving arrests you've been involved in?
Approximately 300 to 400.
And have you ever encountered a defendant or a suspect who was not slurring speech but was intoxicated?
Yes, I have.
Debbie, I'm going to show you again the body cam video, please. You need to start with the whole thing.
Your Honor, he's already covered this.
Judge, he brought up the time. We have the answer. The time's exactly. So we're going to clarify approximately what the time exactly time you're talking about.
If he gives me a time, Judge, I want to stipulate to it.
What about that?
I don't know it off the top of my head, Judge. I have to. I never had that.
He's going, Your Honor. The officer already testified 20 or 30 minutes. End of story.
I'm going to sustain the objection. We revert this.
No further questions.
All right, and refront. Ms. Wood, speak to you.
Judge, no, we ask that he remain under subpoena until
You're not off the hook, but you're free. Next witness.
I tried to scream, and then everything was black again.
One of the most emotional moments came from Mariah Dodds. She's the mother of Zayn and Alanah Phillips, the 2 children killed from the crash. Dodds says she doesn't remember when the car smashed through the building, only waking up in the hospital to the news no parent wants to hear.
And that's when she told me that Jaden was, life flew to a hospital and Zayn and Alanah were no longer there.
Jurors also heard from Lieutenant Brian Quinn with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. He analyzes vehicle EDRs. Quinn says they work like a black box, which stores vehicle information.
It will record every time you hit your brake pedal. It's going to record percentage of throttle. It will record your speed.
According to the EDR report from Chidester's 2017 Ford, the vehicle sped up in the moment's miles per hour. The report
My understanding is he has, and now the stipulation to admit People's 10, we don't intend to publish it at this time.
No objection.
All right, People's 10 is admitted. Would you like to call your next witness?
Thank you, Judge. We'll call Edward Smothers.
Right in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, right this way. Watch your step. Make sure the chair doesn't roll.
So I know this is intimidating, and I can see that you're soft-spoken, so you just kind of have to lean like one, okay?
Yeah.
Would you state your name, please?
Edward Smothers.
Would you like some water?
No, I'm fine.
All right. You're going to have to definitely scoot up closer to that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Ed, how old are you?
14.
Okay. Were you 14 on April 20th of last year?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember on April 20th of last year going to a birthday party at the Swan Boat Club?
Yes.
Who did you go with?
Mariah.
Mariah Dodds?
Yeah.
Just right into the mic, Ed. Okay? Who is Mariah to you? Is she related to you?
Yes.
How?
Aunt. Or aunt.
Pardon?
Aunt.
She's your aunt?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember being at the party?
Yes.
And what did you do while you were there?
Played out back for the most part.
Played some of the games and things?
Yeah.
Do you remember something happening that ended the party?
Yes.
What happened?
The car went through the building.
Okay. Where were you? Well, did you hear the crash?
Yes.
Do you remember it happening?
Somewhat.
Okay. Do you know where you were when you heard the crash?
Not exactly.
Were you in the main party room, outside?
In the main party room.
Okay. Do you remember what you were doing when you heard it?
No.
After the crash, what's the first thing you remember?
Just waking up on the floor.
Okay. Were you in the same room?
In the walkway into the main party room.
Is that where you were when you heard the crash?
No.
So you woke up in a different room from where you heard the crash?
Kind of. I was more or less just in that walkway, sort of.
Okay. Once you woke up, you called it a hallway, like a breezeway?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What were you doing? What's the first thing you remember after you heard the crash?
Just looking around.
And how did you feel?
After that, I just stopped thinking and started to panic.
Okay. Could you walk?
No.
Okay. Could you stand up?
I didn't try because it hurt too.
Okay.
Try.
What hurt?
My leg.
All right. Eventually, did police and EMTs and firefighters come in and help you out?
Yes.
Do you remember riding in an ambulance to the hospital?
Yes.
Is that what happened? You got taken to a hospital by ambulance?
Yeah.
Do you know what eventually was wrong with you?
I broke my femur.
You broke your leg?
More or less, yeah.
Okay. Did you have to have surgery on that leg?
Yes.
And were you on crutches afterward?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for Mr.
Cross. I don't have any questions. All right, thank you. You may be excused. Next witness.
Judge, people call retired Deputy John Krieger.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Yes, sir. John Krieger, Joncregar.
Thank you, Judge. Deputy, back on April 22nd of 2024, who were you employed by?
The Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
And you've since retired?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
At the time, you were a certified law enforcement officer in the state of Michigan?
Yes, I was.
And what position did you hold in the sheriff's office at that time?
Sheriff's deputy.
Okay. What was your assignment on April 22nd?
April 22nd, I was assigned to the expediter position within the sheriff's office, taking reports over the phone.
Okay. Were you given a unique assignment that day?
Yes, I was.
What was that assignment?
I was asked to transport the blood evidence kit to the Michigan State Police Lab,
And where's the Michigan State Police Lab?
Lansing, Michigan.
Okay. So you were to drive the blood evidence, in this case, from Monroe to East Lansing.
Yes, sir.
About what time did you pick up the blood from evidence?
Sometime around 8:30 in the morning.
Okay. And you physically transported it, I assume, in a patrol car?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you pick up a blood kit from evidence. Did it look roughly like this?
Yes, sir.
How many blood kits have you dealt with in your career as a deputy?
Quite a few. I don't know the exact number.
How long were you a deputy?
25 years, 8 months.
Okay. Did that blood kit that you picked up from evidence look any different from any of the other ones you've dealt with in your career?
No, sir.
Did the box appear to be in good shape?
Yes.
Was there any damage to it?
No.
On the trip between Monroe and East Lansing, did anything of note happen?
Nothing happened.
Okay. Did you ever leave the car?
No, sir.
No stops for lunch or breakfast or bathroom break or anything?
No.
So the kit was in your possession the whole time?
Yes, it was.
Where did you maintain the kit while you were driving up there?
It was on the front passenger seat of the patrol car.
And you eventually made it to the Michigan State Police Crime Lab
Yes, I did.
and delivered it to a technician there?
If I can refer to my report for the exact name. So I met with Lab Supervisor Samantha Bokamp and Forensic Technician Kathy Hepner, and I handed the kit directly to Kathy Hepner.
Okay. And what time about was that?
I wouldn't say it was around 10:30.
Okay. So about a 2-hour trip up there?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions for the retired deputy judge?
Cross.
Thank you.
Congratulations on being retired.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Deputy, when you were transporting this blood kit, did you know whose blood kit it was?
Yes, sir.
Okay, did it have it marked on the kit itself?
Yes.
Okay. And do you usually transport them, or do you usually, in your experience, it be sent by mail?
It goes usually by mail, but by the evidence coordinator.
Okay, and this one was sent personally, was driven up there?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And what department with the state was it handed off to?
It was handed directly to a lab technician at the Michigan State Police Crime Lab.
And on the way up there, did you have it in any type of a container that would have had, like, you know, sometimes lunches have an ice pack or something in there to keep it cool or keep it cold?
No.
And do you know what the temperature was that day? Do you have any idea at all?
I don't recall what it was.
And then once you arrived, did you go there alone?
Yes.
And then after you took this 2-hour trip and you arrived there and you sort of handed it off, do you know what anybody did in front of you that you would have witnessed what they did with it?
Not once I handed it to the lab technician, no, I don't know what they do with it from there.
You get like a receipt signed?
I checked it in, I signed in when I arrived there.
Did you get a receipt from them?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And then you just, you drove back to the station and carried on as a normal day, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Any redirect?
No, thank you,
May this witness be excused.
Yes.
Thank you. Next witness.
Judge, people call Roe Monday.
Roll Mundy, M-U-N-D-Y.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mundy. Ms. Mundy, what do you do for a living?
I'm a phlebotomist.
And could you tell the jury what a phlebotomist is?
Oh, I draw blood. Like, that's a really
In a hospital setting, in a doctor's
medical.
office?
Yep. In a hospital, and, yeah, outpatient, all the above, yes. Whatever paramedic asks, that's where I go.
Okay. Who do you work for?
Paramedical,
And generally out of Toledo?
out of Toledo.
How long have you been a phlebotomist?
Over 10 years.
Okay. What does one have to do to become a phlebotomist?
You go to school I went for a year. Some people go for less than that.
Okay.
And, yeah, when you get certified, you take a test and you get registered or certified. I got registered.
And you took that test and you got certified?
I got, registered under the state, yes.
And that was some 10 years ago?
Yeah, almost 15 years ago.
Okay. And that certification has been in good standing this whole time?
Yes, because I'm still working, so I stay under the regulations, correct.
Okay. Do you have to recert every so often?
You take continuing education.
Okay. So you need so many CE credits a year?
Every month you take them. You take it certified to keep you in good standing.
And you've done that throughout the length of your career?
Yes.
Over the course of your career, how many blood draws would you say you've done?
Thousands.
Okay.
I mean, I do at least 90 to 120 a day.
Okay.
So
And do you have like a nurse's schedule? You work like 3 days a week, probably?
I work a lot of hours. I do it Monday through Friday for the most part, yes. 12-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts, just depending on what's available.
And you're mostly out of ProMedica Toledo, you said, right?
Correct.
But you'll do coverage shifts in other hospitals?
As long as it's under ProMedica, yes. Monroe is under ProMedica, so when their schedule is low, if they put it into Toledo, we can pick up out here, and so that's what I do. I pick up here in Monroe's hospital.
Is that what happened on April 20th of last year?
Correct, yes.
You were working in ProMedica Monroe?
Yes.
Through the course of your employment, did you encounter the defendant, Ms. Chidester, in this case?
Yes.
Why did you encounter her?
It's been called a legal draw for ProMedica, and we had to come down to the emergency room and draw whatever. When they call, they call it a legal draw. So we just come down and the deputy is there, and then we draw the patient.
Okay.
That's why I encountered her.
All right. What's the difference, if you know, between a legal draw and a regular blood draw?
Well, it's just deputy's is there, is present. Any other draw, I don't have to have a nurse unless it's like a combative patient or something. So that's the difference.
Okay.
Our officer is present.
Is there other paperwork that you fill out for a legal draw?
Yes, it's a whole checklist that we have to fill out.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Where do you get the checklist?
Well, when I come down, it's already there, but I believe that the nurses give it to the deputy or the deputy already has it.
Okay.
I'm not really positive. They already have it on the station for me.
Okay. So the checklist is supplied to you.
Correct.
You fill it out.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, two of us fills it out. The deputy fills it out, like signs, like as a witness, but I fill it out, check everything, and yes. Is that what you're asking?
That is what I'm asking.
Okay.
And Ms. Mundy, I'll show you this document. Do you recognize this?
I can take it. Okay. Yes.
This is what's been pre-marked as Defense 16. And what's the title of that document, Ms. Mundy?
The blood,
He wasn't.
Pardon?
blood alcohol collection checklist?
And is that the document you filled out in this case?
Yes. Yes.
And that's your signature on there?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, people would have moved to admit the blood alcohol collection checklist as People 16.
Okay, you said Defense 16 previously. You mean People 16.
Oh, yeah, I do mean that.
All right. Well, fine. Okay. All right. People 16 is admitted.
So, Ms. Mundy, could you describe for the folks on the jury, what's the procedure for doing a legal blood draw?
Well, I go through this checklist and verify the officer, they state the person's name and they have an ID there present also. And then, the witness or the patient I'm drawing is who, they either say yes or the officer says, yes, this is who the person is because they have the ID. And then,
So the first step is you verify
Who
with
the
the
patient
officer
is,
that the
yeah.
patient that you're drawing from is who the person they want you to draw.
correct.
And
And
then
the
you-
officer says something to the patient, well, I consider it the patient, but yes.
Gotcha. And they identify the patient for you. You begin the process. What do you do then?
I set up
Okay.
for my draw. Is that, I don't,
Well, just
through
explain,
my
you know.
checklist, is that what you're asking? I mean,
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm asking, specifically in this case, did those, well, let's do it this way.
Yes.
Specifically in this case, did those things that you're describing happen?
correct.
Okay, so you came down to the emergency room, is that right?
Correct.
And there's a deputy there,
Correct, with the patient. A nurse is there. They don't stay, but the nurse is there also.
okay,
Then they give me a kit, and it's a box kit.
okay,
And then, I open the kit. There's tubes in it. Take them out. You got to label them. And then I draw the patient, pull out my tourniquet. And I don't know if you want me to pull out all those steps, but yes.
okay. And all those steps, did those happen in this case?
Yes.
Do you recall the time of the blood draw in this case, Ms. Mundy?
No, I mean, if I look back at the document, but
Can you look at the?
yes, it says 1835, which means 6:35.
Okay. So I think where we were at in the process was you said, I set up. So what is that process and what was that process in this case?
You just pull out a tourniquet, you glove up, you pull out a tourniquet, you pull out your needle after your tubes and everything is labeled. And the difference with a regular blood draw also is I use alcohol. In this case, I didn't use the iodine patch that comes with the kit. So you do that, I have the iodine and then I have the gauze. I go over to the patient, I draw the patient.
Okay. And you draw the patient into the tubes provided in the kit?
Correct.
Do you inspect the tubes before you do the draw?
Well, yes, for the most part, yes. They're not expired is what I'm looking for.
Okay. Because you have to label them?
Correct.
Okay. So you get pretty up close to it.
Yes,
Is there a preservative in those tubes?
yes,
Was there a preservative in those tubes in this case?
yes.
So when you set up, you said you used a tourniquet, some gauze. What's the item called that
The
goes-
vacuum container is a vac, the
Okay.
vac needle.
Right,
It's just
it
a
goes
needle.
right into the
arm,
Okay.
into the vein, is what yes, into the vein.
okay.
You put the tube onto the vacuum, push it in, and blood pulls out. It's a pre-vacuum tube.
That piece of equipment in this case, was that sterile?
Yes,
How
comes
do
out
you
of a
know?
package. You open a package every time. If anything's open, we discard it. So yes, it comes out of a package tube, a package. I open it and pull the needle out. Before I draw, I take a lid off of the actual needle. And that's not until I'm ready to actually draw the patient.
Okay. So that's a sterile instrument that comes out of a sealed package?
Correct.
And that's what happened in this case?
Yes,
And you already said you cleaned the I'm going to say it wrong.
The patient's arm.
Yeah,
With
iodine.
Yeah, but the location now, I'm just gonna draw it correct.
So once you're all set up, you set up the patient for the draw. What do you do?
Tie the tourniquet.
Okay. And then what?
Yep, feel for the vein. Once I know, I wipe her arm, wipe the patient's arm, and then I draw the blood. Put the needle in, put the tube on, and the blood pulls out.
What do you mean by pulls out?
It sucks. It's a pre-vacuum tube, so it sucks into a needle.
So in other words, you've got the contraption set up on the arm. It's a tube with a vacuum in it.
Yes, the tube is correct.
And so when you place the tube on the needle,
It shoots into the.
it just fills.
Yes,
And did that happen in this case?
Yes.
You put the tube on the needle and it just filled.
yes, it fills up correct.
What does that tell you about the vacuum?
That is a seal. Nothing's broken. There's no fault in neither the needle or the tube itself.
So if you put a tube on there and it didn't fill, what would that tell you?
It means it's not vacuumed.
Would you use that
I wouldn't
tube?
use that. They would have to give me another tube at that point. Start the draw over, pretty much.
Gotcha. But in this case, the tube's just
Everything
filled.
filled. There's 2 tubes that needed to be filled, and both tubes filled with no problems.
And you did that for 2 vials.
Correct.
And then you had testified earlier that there's a preservative in that tube. You saw it in this case.
Correct.
And what do you do to the tube in relation to the preservative once the blood
You
is drawn?
invert a few times. Like, you don't sit there and do this. You just invert it, back and forth, so it all is mixed in.
Okay. Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
And both of these tubes, they were drawn in accordance with the procedure on the checklist?
Correct.
And they're drawn in accordance with standard medical procedure?
Correct.
And you said you filled out the labels on the tube.
Yes.
After you get done, you take a look at the labels and you confirm that?
Correct.
And those were both, in this case, labeled with the name of the patient,
Yes.
the date,
Date and time.
and your initials?
I believe it's initials. It's not my signature. Signature's on this paper, so yes.
Okay. And you did that right in the room, correct?
Correct.
Right with the defendant next to you?
Yes.
So you get called down to the ER. You don't work down there all day.
No.
Is there a physician in charge of the emergency room
Yes.
at ProMedica Monroe?
Yes.
And was there a physician in charge that day?
Yes.
Once you've done the draw, you've inverted the tubes, you've labeled the vials, what do you do with them then?
You put them back into when you pull them out of the box, there's this, compartments that you put them in so they don't crack to each other because they're glass tubes.
Right.
So I put them back in that, put them back in the box, and give them to the deputy. Or actually, I don't put them in the box. I just put them, and they put it in. The deputy puts it in the box.
Okay, that's
Just to
generally how you do it.
verify everything is correct too. A second check, I guess. But yes,
So I'm sorry, we were talking over each other. You give them back to the deputy, I think you said, so the deputy can verify everything's correct as well?
correct.
And is that what happened in this case?
Yes.
After you gave the vials back to the deputy, what did you do?
I go back to.
That
yeah,
concluded your contact with the defendant in this
correct.
case?
Yes.
And you didn't have anything else to do with her?
No.
Haven't seen her since,
No.
until today?
Yes.
Do you recognize the patient from that day here in the courtroom?
I do. Yep.
Okay. Did you point her out for the court?
Yeah.
Party stipulate that this witness has identified the defendant.
And I'll take that back from you, Ms. Martin. Thank you. And Judge, I don't have any further questions for her.
Cross.
Thank you. Ma'am, my name is Bill Kolovis, and I represent Ms. Marshella Chidester, the defendant in this case. That's why I'm sitting next to her, okay? All right, thank you. We've never had opportunity to talk, you and I, or discuss this case, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Have you ever talked to anybody at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office or the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office prior to this moment?
Yes.
Who have you talked to?
I believe his name is Ken. I'm not really positive what the
I
name
apologize,
is.
did you say Ken?
I believe. I may be wrong. I don't know what the.
This is, if there's not more than
Okay.
two, this is Mr. Ken Lorraine.
Okay, that's
Do you
who I
think
talked
you
to
spoke
Lorraine.
with him?
Yes.
Okay. When did you initially speak with him, if you recall? Any time period, like, April last year, April,
No,
February
just
this year?
it was this year that I spoke to anybody.
Okay. And what was the discussion that you had?
Pretty much just being made aware that I will be, that I have to come and testify in this,
That you may testify or be
that I
a
may,
witness,
yes,
sort of?
that I may be subpoenaed for this.
Did you ever talk to him this morning?
This morning, no.
Have you talked to anybody from the prosecutor's office this morning?
Yes, they called to make sure I was here.
I'm sorry, who
They
did
just-
you, I'm sorry, who did you speak with?
Whoever it was the prosecutor, said they were at the prosecutor's office. I can't recall the name. They just said, Monroe's number came through my phone to make sure I was here.
So when you arrived in the building, you went up to the third floor to the prosecutor's office?
Yes.
Okay.
I only made it off the elevator. They were waiting for, somebody was waiting for me
They were waiting for you when you came in the
to
building?
walk, yes. to
Okay, so
walk
you went
over.
to security or the metal
Yes.
detector and then they met you?
Yes,
Okay. Was it one person or two?
just one person.
Okay, was it a lady?
It was a guy. He's not, he said I didn't know his name either. He just said he was in the prosecutor's office. So
Okay.
the deputy had him walk me, to show me where I was supposed to be at this morning.
Okay, so he walked you to the courtroom here, outside the courtroom?
Well, was it Michelle? Is this the lady that just walked me in, Michelle? I'm not recalling nobody's
It's
name.
okay, take your time. I wasn't there, we weren't there, and I
Yeah.
just like to find out how you.
A
made your way.
male, the officer said something, came up the elevator with him, and so he can direct me where I'm supposed to go.
Okay, and then you talked to a person you believe is named Michelle?
I believe so. I believe that's what just
Okay,
walked me
and
in,
where did you meet her?
off the elevator. Well, yes, in the prosecutor's door. Like I didn't even walk through yet.
Okay, by the prosecutor's office, did you say?
I'm not familiar with none of y'all's building here, so I don't know where I just came into a hallway. So I can't be
Okay.
specific about that type of stuff.
There's no test going to be, I totally understand and empathy that you
So I
don't-
met at doorways pretty much, so I don't know exactly where I was, so you're pinpointing that, I have no clue.
All right, I just didn't know if you were in the hallway downstairs.
On the
or
third
whether-
floor.
Let's be careful, both of you, from talking over the other person.
I'm sorry, Judge. So did you come up to the third floor and you met this lady?
Yes,
Okay. And did she bring you to the courtroom?
yes, well, outside the courtroom, correct.
Okay. Was anything discussed about the case?
No,
No?
never spoke to anybody, no, nothing more.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now, you stated that you work for the hospital, correct?
Correct,
And you still work for the hospital, correct?
correct.
Okay. And then there's two types of blood draws. You said a regular blood draw, and then what is the other, a legal blood draw?
It's called a legal blood draw.
Okay. And you, in your profession, can do a legal blood draw, or at least the hospital wants you to do the legal blood draw, am I correct?
Yes, I can do them, correct.
Okay. And then do you do regular blood draws, or do nurses do that? I'm going by my memory as to what you said earlier.
Yeah, I draw the patients, the only difference is regular is they're inpatient or outpatient, or they're in the emergency room. The difference here is that a deputy is present in the room. That's the only
Okay.
difference. They're all blood draws.
I'm a little bit confused. I'll just ask you, when somebody gets brought in with a deputy or a legal blood draw, you handle those type when you're working?
Correct.
Okay. And if it's a person that's getting medical treatment, a nurse, registered nurse, whomever of a nurse, does those blood draws?
Correct.
And you're not a registered nurse?
No.
Or a nurse at all, correct?
No.
Okay. What does it take to become certified of your profession?
You go to school.
How long do you go to school?
I went for a year. Other people can go less or longer, depending on.
And it's like full-time?
Yes.
Okay. And then do you get a degree or a certificate?
I got registered. I got a certificate, and then I get registered with the state.
Okay. Do you have a degree of any type? I mean, in other words, it's not like a 2-year degree or anything like that, right?
No.
Okay. And you received that certificate or license about, did you say, 10 years ago?
Yes.
And have you worked in a hospital setting for the full 10 years?
No.
How long have you worked at your current hospital?
Yeah, I've been with ProMedica for 10 years, correct, but I haven't been in a hospital setting the whole time. I still do outpatient, is what I'm saying.
How long have you worked at your current hospital that you're at today?
I'm going to say for the last 2 years.
So about a year before this incident, correct?
Correct.
And you worked sort of a little bit hand in hand with nurses,
Yes.
and they've got the blood put away. They have blood for patients. Do you know where they keep that?
No.
You have no idea?
We send it to processing.
Okay, so when you want to give blood to a patient that needs it inpatient,
I don't
You know
give
where-
blood to anybody, that's what I'm saying.
Have you ever seen any nurses go get blood for somebody that's inpatient that needs blood? You've never seen it in 10 years?
No.
Do you remember, this happened April 20th of last year, 2024. Do you remember all the details of this specific incident, of you working and drawing blood with my client?
For the most part, correct.
How many times do you think you've drawn blood in your profession since the 20th of April, 2024?
At least over 5,000.
5,000
within the
since-
year, correct.
Okay, 5,000 since April 20th of 24?
Of 24, at least.
That's amazing. I mean, it's a comment, but it's amazing. 5,000. And you remember each and every single one?
No.
You said that, well, do you remember specifically, in this case, that day, looking in the tube to see what was at the bottom of the tube?
Not at the bottom of the tube, it's throughout the tube. It's like,
Do you remember specifically looking at it, in this case, on that day?
yes. I look at them, yes.
Do you keep notes?
No,
You just go by your memory, right?
correct.
And when you said that you invert the tube, is that what you said?
Invert, correct.
Okay. And when we saw the video, we saw a video yesterday,
Okay.
and I believe it showed you that you inverted or you tilted.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Would you state your name for us and spell your last name, please?
My name is Kathy Hepner, Kathy, last name Hoeppner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Hebner, where do you work?
I'm a forensic technician assigned to the Michigan State Police Lansing Forensic Lab.
Pardon on the last part?
Sorry, I'm assigned to the Forensic Science Division Lansing Lab.
Okay, Lansing Lab is what I missed. To be a forensic technician at the forensic lab, what kind of education does one need?
It requires an associate's degree in a hard science such as biology, chemistry, like that.
Do you have an associate's degree in hard science?
I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Central Michigan University.
How long have you worked at the crime lab?
I have worked there since August of 2023.
And Ms. Hebner, did you prepare a curriculum vitae and give it to the prosecutor's office in this case?
Yes.
I'm going to show you this document that's been marked People's Exhibit 17. Does this look familiar to you?
Yes, it does.
Is that a copy of your resume?
Yes.
And you provided that to the prosecutor's office upon request?
Yes, I did.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of your experience in the field of forensic toxicology and being a forensic technician?
Yes.
Judge, people would have moved to admit Ms. Hefner's CV as People's 17.
No objection, Your Honor. People 17 is admitted.
So, Ms. Hefner, what does a forensic technician do?
In the toxicology unit, a forensic technician is responsible for receiving, opening, cataloging the tox kits that are received daily in the lab. We also assist the scientists perform ancillary duties such as preparing reagents, stocking supplies, emptying biohazard duties as needed.
Okay. And that was your job, that was your assignment on April 22nd of last year?
Yes, it was.
Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
Did you receive a specimen that brought you here to testify in this case?
Yes.
How was that? How did you go about receiving that specimen?
That specimen was a personal delivery. Deputy Krieger drove the specimen to the lab. When he arrived at the lab, the front desk staff notified the tox unit that he had arrived. Ms. Beecham and I went up to the front desk, and a hand-to-hand delivery was done directly from Deputy Krieger to myself.
Okay. Do you know about what time that delivery occurred?
That was at 10:24 a.m.
Is there a protocol in the forensic crime lab for the receipt and documentation of evidence?
Yes, we have a standard operating procedure. It is TX-PM 1.4 that covers all aspects of receiving, cataloging, logging in, transferring evidence.
So roughly, as it pertains to this case, what is that procedure or protocol, I should say?
So as I stated before, a direct hand-to-hand transfer was done. I then took the sample into the lab where I opened it, looked at forensic advantage. The tests that were requested were assigned. The evidence and the paperwork was all assigned a unique lab identifier that stayed with that evidence and that paperwork throughout the entire process. I guess that's about it.
Okay. So I'm going to hand you well, first of all, do you recognize this item?
I do.
What is this?
That is the standard toxicology kit.
Okay. I'm going to hand you this. It has its kit seal in place, but that's been cut so that you can open it. So you received a kit like that, pretty much in that condition.
Yes.
And you inspect the box first, I assume.
Yes.
And you open the seal.
Yes.
And then what do you do?
So I open some informational slips of paper. Typically, there are 2 10-milliliter gray top blood tubes, 2 small screw cap bottles in case urine is collected, the cardboard holder that the tubes are placed in a plastic bag in case they're damaged. There are alcohol prep pads. There are labels for both the bottles and the tubes. And then there is what is called the FSD 93. This is paperwork that is filled out. There's 3 sections to it. The top section is for the investigating agency's information. The middle section is the subject information. And then the bottom portion is filled out by the phlebotomist and states the medical facility, date and times that the blood was drawn. In this case, because it was a hand-to-hand delivery, there was also what is called an FS-17, which is a small pink slip of paper, and that is filled out by the deputy, and that states the date and time that it was delivered.
So that pink piece of paper, that's not in the kit?
No.
That's filled out by the deputy delivering it?
Yes.
Okay. So the way this kit is packaged, aside from some of the superfluous stuff, the urine containers and things like that, is that roughly what the kit looked like in this case?
Yes.
And did it have an FSD 93 with it?
Yes, it did.
And was that filled out?
Yes, it was.
Were the tubes labeled?
Yes, they were.
And what do you do in regards to the labels on the tubes with the FSD 93?
I compare the information on the tubes to the information on the FSD 93 to make sure that everything matches. If there is any discrepancies, those are noted in the case comments. And if information is missing or doesn't match, we will reach out to the investigating agency.
So when you opened this kit,
Ms. Chidester, the defendant in this case, okay?
Yes.
And I asked you, and you've done a great job, if you could keep your voice up then, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. At the time that you took a handoff or took this from the police officer and took custody of it, you had been working for the state of Michigan, that division, for about 6-8 months?
Correct.
And where did you work prior to that?
Sparrow Hospital in Lansing, Michigan.
And after the form was filled out, when this was handed off to you, this kit, you gave it to, who did you give it to?
Once I was done logging in the kit, I did a hand-to-hand transfer with forensic scientist Tabitha Faust.
Okay. And then did you see what she did with it?
No, that was the end of my contact with the kit.
Do you, is that solely your position back on the 20th of April last year, is to do these handoffs or receive things and hand them off to toxicologists?
Yes.
You work like a reception area, is it? Or?
At the time, no, I was part of the toxicology unit.
Okay. All right. And your sole position back then last year was to receive documents and then give them to a toxicologist, correct?
It was to receive toxicology kits that were submitted by law enforcement agencies.
And do what with them?
Open them, log in the information, and then typically samples would be put into storage. However, because this case was expedited, this was a direct hand-to-hand transfer.
Okay. And when you say
when things are put into storage. What is storage?
It is a refrigerated, a walk-in refrigeration unit that is monitored daily.
And is it important that it gets monitored daily?
Yes,
It's a walk-in refrigeration unit.
yes.
And do you know why these specimens are kept in a walk-in refrigeration unit?
Not exactly.
You have no idea.
I can't answer to that.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any redirect? No, thank you, Judge. May this witness be excused.
She may.
Thank you very much.
People of the state of Michigan versus Marshella Chidester.
Bring in a jury, please. All right, you may be seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Your next witness, Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Judge. Tabitha Faust from the Michigan State Police Crime Lab.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ma'am. Make sure the chair doesn't roll off.
Yeah, we got it.
Would you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Yes, my name is Tabitha Faust, Faust.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Ms. Faust.
Good morning.
Ms. Faust, where are you employed?
Currently, I am a forensic scientist with the Michigan State Police Crime Lab in Lansing, Michigan.
How long have you been in that role?
I've been a scientist since December of 2021.
And how long have you worked with the Michigan State Police Crime Lab overall?
Overall, it's been since May of 2018. I started as a forensic technician and then was promoted to scientist in 2021.
Prior to your appointment to the lab in 2018, did you have any previous employment in your field?
It was related. I worked for the DEQ in the water lab, so it was a laboratory, but it wasn't a forensics lab.
Okay. Ms. Faust, is the Michigan State Police Crime Laboratory an accredited lab?
Yes, we are.
What does an accredited lab mean?
So having an accreditation means that an outside agency comes in and they basically do different audits and they make sure that we are following our policies and procedures like we say we are, and that they meet the standards of the scientific community.
And who performs the lab's accreditation?
So we are accredited by an association called ANAB.
What does that stand for?
So the A is actually another acronym, that's ANSI, National Accreditation Board, and ANSI is the American National Standards Institute.
And were you so employed on April 22nd of 2024?
Yes, I was.
And was the lab's accreditation current at that time?
Yes.
Ms. Faust, what education did you have to obtain to hold your current position?
So I have a bachelor's in biochemistry from Eastern Michigan University.
Beyond your bachelor's degree, did you have to receive any training to hold your position?
Yes, the Michigan State Police Toxicology Unit does a module-based training. So what that is if you want to get certified in alcohol analysis, you have to complete the alcohol analysis module. And that entails watching a competent scientist do the analysis, practicing doing repeats. And so what we would do is we would reanalyze samples that were already analyzed to make sure the results matched. And for alcohols, it's about 200 repeats. And then we have to pass an oral, an actual competency test, like the actual analysis, and then we have to do a written competency test.
And about how long does that take?
It depends on the scientist and the workload, and like for me, I was also still doing some of my technician duties, so I think for my scientist training, it took a couple months.
And all those tests, the competency tests, the practical, the oral, the written, you were able to pass all those?
Yes.
Do you continue to receive training to hold your position?
Yes, we're required to get continuing education credits as a scientist. I have to get 7 every 2 years, and that involves going to society meetings. Like, for example, last October, I went to the Society of Forensic Toxicologists meeting in St. Louis. So that's a week-long conference where I went to different lectures and saw different research in the field. So we're required to do that. We're required to read articles. We also have to attend the Borkenstein class for both alcohol and drugs.
And how often do you have to attend that class?
It's required only once, but we are encouraged, if we are interested in going again to get a refresher, the state will allow us to do that.
Have you attended that at least once?
Yes, I've attended both the alcohol and the drug workshop once.
Other than what you already mentioned about your training to become a forensic toxicologist, do you receive any specialized training to analyze for the presence of alcohol in blood?
Yes, as I said, there's an alcohol module for testing samples, and I completed that.
And could you just, is that the training you already described?
Yes, it is.
And outside of what you've already described, do you have any requirement to maintain your current position, to attend continuing education?
Yes, as I said, we're required to do the continuing education, but we are also required to do proficiency tests every year. And what that is that an outside agency will send us a sample of blood with a known alcohol, but we don't know what the result is. And so we test it, report it to the outside agency, and then they let us know if we are correct with our results.
And that's once a year you have to do that?
It's once a year we have to do some form of proficiency test because like I'm certified in multiple analyses, so I don't have to do every analysis every year. It's every 5 years for every analysis I'm competent in.
Since you brought it up, what analysis are you competent in?
So I am competent in alcohol analysis, THC, our low dose or LC drugs of abuse panel, and our gabapentin panel, and our preliminary drug screen.
Prior to the date in question here, had you ever tested a blood sample for alcohol?
Yes.
About how many times prior to April 22nd, 2024?
I stopped counting after about 12,000.
Have you ever testified before, Ms. Faust?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert in forensic toxicology in the state of Michigan?
Yes, I have.
How many times have you known?
I've been qualified as an expert 22 times.
Is that all the times you testified?
No, I've testified a total of 38 times in court.
Ms. Faust, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked People's Exhibit 19. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae or CD.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of your qualifications as a forensic toxicologist?
Yes, it is.
And you prepared this?
Yes.
And you submitted it to the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office at our request?
Yes, I did.
Judge, move to admit Ms. Faust's CV as People's 19.
No, plaintiff's 19 is admitted. People's 19, I'm sorry.
Judge, at this time, I move to qualify Ms. Faust as an expert in forensic toxicology.
Mr. Clemens?
I'm sorry, Judge.
He moved for the admission of her as an expert in forensic. All right. Court determines that this witness is in fact an expert in forensic toxicology.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Faust, turning your attention to April 22nd, 2024. Did you receive a blood specimen that brought you here to testify in this case?
Yes, I did.
Do you know how that specimen was delivered?
Specifically to me, it was hand delivered by our forensic technician, Kathy Hepner.
Is that typical of a blood specimen to be delivered to you by a technician?
It is a little atypical. Most of the time it goes into storage before being analyzed for alcohol, but this case had a rush on it, and so it was hand delivered to me so I could prepare it for alcohol analysis right away.
And what was the nature of the specimen you received in this case?
Can you clarify?
What physically did you do?
Yes. So I received 2 gray top tubes with about approximately 9 milliliters of blood in each.
Okay. Were those tubes labeled?
Yes, they were.
And do you recall what name was on the labels?
Yes, it was a Marshella Chidester.
And did that match all the intake documentation with the tubes?
Yes, it did.
So after you received the sample from the technician, you ascertained that it was properly labeled and documented?
Yes, as part of our alcohol analysis, we will check all the evidence in a case that we receive against with the information in our system. That way we make sure it's accurate and we're testing the correct samples.
Once you did all that, what did you do in this case?
So in this case, after the tube check, I prepared the sample for alcohol analysis. And so to prepare a sample for analysis for alcohol, we take a small bit of blood out of the tube, about 50 microliters. We then mix it with an internal standard. We do this 2 separate times. So I will take 2 bits of blood out of the tube and put it into 2 separate vials. Those are then run on 2 different instruments. So we actually analyze all the blood samples 2 different times.
So you're running 2 tests simultaneously on the same sample?
Yes, we will prepare the sample for analysis twice because we have what we call GC 19-1 and 19-2, which are 2 separate instruments that we run on.
Those instruments, are those calibrated and tested prior to you running samples?
Yes, I prepare a calibration curve with every alcohol batch I run, so it is calibrated every single run.
Is there anything else to describe about the method the Michigan State Police Crime Lab uses to test blood?
So the method itself is called headspace gas chromatography, and what that is the sample is in the vial is heated, and the air above it is what the instrument actually samples, and it's run through a column, which is just a special tubing. That tubing then separates the compounds. We actually look for 4 different alcohols, and then the detector at the end will quantify and tell us how much of each compound is in that sample.
And do you have experience using this method?
Yes.
How much?
As I said earlier, thousands.
So it's the same method every time?
It is the same method every time.
And all the experience you've gained with this method, this has all been at the Michigan State Police Crime Lab?
Yes.
Does the lab have protocols in place for this method?
Yes, we do.
And what is the protocol for using this method?
So the protocol is named Determination of Ethyl Alcohol in Samples, and that protocol is used to try to standardize as much as how all the alcohol analysis that is done by the Michigan State Police is done the same general way every time.
Why do you have that protocol?
As I said, it's to standardize how the tests are run. There might be subtle differences between scientists, like if you're left-handed, then you're going to pipette with your left hand. But in general, the method and how the samples are analyzed are the same throughout the entire toxicology unit.
And in this specific case, did you follow that protocol?
Yes, I did.
As best you can in layman's terms, can you describe further the method and modality you use to analyze the blood?
So as I said earlier, it's headspace gas chromatography. So the vial is heated, the air above it is sampled. Our instruments actually have 2 separate columns, and so this is done in each instrument twice, and that gives us 2 results per instrument. So we do get a total of 4 results. We analyze for not only ethanol, we also include acetone, isopropanol, and I am blanking on the last one.
Another type of alcohol?
Methanol, that's what it is.
And you performed that analysis on the sample in this case?
Yes, I did.
Do you know when you performed it?
So I don't know exactly when I prepared the sample because the system that I use is I sit down and I prepare all of the quality control samples and the casework samples. So it's a total of 89, give or take, depending on if there's extra or repeats. And I will prepare those all at the same time, and then I will place them on the instrument and then run the instrument. So I don't know exactly when I would have pipetted it. I do know when the sample was run through the instrument because the instrument will track that, and that was at 21:19.
For those of us not familiar with military time?
I'm not very familiar with the year. I think that's 9:19, I think.
9:19 p.m.?
Yes.
You folks work that late?
No, so our instrument, the runtime for a standard alcohol batch is a little over 7 hours. And so because it takes us time to prepare the samples and then run them on the instrument, most of the time what we do is we'll start the instrument, it will run overnight, and we will go back the next day, collect the data, process the data, and then write our reports.
Okay. And that's what happened in this case?
Yes.
So you can't say for sure when you actually prepare the sample and put it in the machine that tests it?
No, because as I said, I prepare them all. I will just sit in front of our fume hood where we do our sample prep, and I will just pipette one at a time and just keep going through the 70 until I'm done. So I don't keep track of what time I prepare each sample.
So what are the steps in preparing a sample?
So we use what's called a pipetter diluter to prepare the sample, and what that does, the best visualization is it kind of looks like a coffee stir straw. So it's a thin straw, and we use that to draw up the amount of blood we need from each tube. And then as it dispenses into the vial for the instrument, it also dispenses not only the blood, but the internal standard that we use.
And you use a separate straw for each sample?
We don't. I rinse it in between, and I also wipe it off with a specialized cloth that is designed for blood, so that way it's clean in between each sample.
So you described it as straws, but this is an instrument made out of something other than plastic?
Yes, the whole instrument is, there's metal, it's got like a handle on it with a button, and that's how I draw up and dispense the sample. But it's just easier to visualize, that's what I use.
Are there procedures in place at the lab to verify the accuracy of your analysis?
Yes, we have a lot of quality control. One thing is the calibration curve, like I spoke of earlier, and that is we pipette a known amount of alcohol in different vials that we analyze, and that kind of tells the instrument, okay, a 0.10 alcohol looks like this. And so that's how we calibrate the instrument. We also run known control samples, and what those are known values that we intersperse in between casework to make sure that, okay, if this is supposed to be a 0.3 alcohol, that it comes out to a 0.3. And so that makes sure the instrument is continuing to work throughout the entire run. We also have, as I mentioned, the internal standard. So that is a kind of alcohol that typically is not found in a human body. And we monitor the amount of that throughout the entire run to make sure there is a proper amount and that it doesn't stray with, it doesn't get out of range, because that shows that there was an issue with that sample. And we also have peer reviews. So a supervisor will review my control pack, so make sure that everything is in range. And then even the data for individual cases is reviewed by other scientists before the report is released.
All of those quality controls that you just stated, were those all done in this case before you issued a report?
Yes.
These methods that you've been talking about, are these all accepted by the scientific community at large?
Yes, they are.
And if they weren't, you probably wouldn't have a lab accreditation, right?
It would be difficult, yes.
Were you able to obtain a result for the blood alcohol concentration from the sample obtained from the defendant in this case?
Yes, I was.
Did you prepare a report regarding that result?
Yes, I did.
I can just show you this document, Ms. Faust. Just take a look at it to see if you recognize it. This has been pre-marked People's 20. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, so this is the report I prepared for the alcohol analysis of TX 24-5842.
And that is the lab case number, for lack of a better term, associated with the defendant in this case?
Yes, we assign an independent lab number to all of our cases.
And you dated that lab report?
Yes, the report was completed on April 23rd.
And you signed it at the bottom?
Yes.
Is there a scientific degree of certainty that the MSP Crime Lab places on the results in issued reports like this one?
Yes, we have a measurement of uncertainty that we include with all of our alcohol results.
And does this report meet that degree of scientific certainty?
Yes, it does.
People move to admit People's 20.
And just take a look at what counts to be on public.
Sure.
No objection, Your Honor, but that's a report that you.
People's 20 is admitted.
And Ms. Faust, I'll hand that back to you. If you could just read into the record the results of that report that you obtained from doing a blood alcohol concentration analysis on the defendant's blood.
So my result was 0.180 grams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood.
So what folks would commonly refer to as a .18.
Yes.
Do you know what the legal limit for alcohol is in the state of Michigan when operating a motor vehicle?
0.08.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Ms. Faust, are you familiar with the term elimination rate as it pertains to alcohol in a person's body?
Yes, I am.
And just explain to the jury, if you could, what is that?
So the elimination rate is the rate in which your body can get rid of alcohol, because ethanol is something that the body doesn't actually like, so it tries to get rid of it, and there is average elimination rates for both males and females.
And what?
Amy, have a sidebar, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, did you conclude your answer? What elimination rate is in the body?
There's a little more I would like to add.
Sure.
So the elimination rate is per an average person, but there's a lot of factors that go into it that can change it. Like if the person had eaten, the person's height, weight, things of that nature will affect the rate per an individual. individual.
So this is, there's an accepted number in the scientific community for what an average elimination rate is.
Yes, there is an average elimination.
And there's one for men and one for women.
Yes.
And Ms. Faust, do you know what the average elimination rate in an adult female is?
Yes, that is 0.018
And that's per hour.
per hour as the average.
But you can't testify specifically to what it would be in this case.
I cannot testify to an individual's elimination rate, especially because it could change depending on the day.
All right, no further questions for this witness, Judge.
Cross.
Excuse me. You want to call? Excuse me. My name is Bill Columbus, and I represent the defendant, Marshella Chidester, that we've been talking about as results. Okay?
Okay.
And you've been speaking out wonderfully. If you could just keep that up for all of us and record.
Okay.
All right, thank you. When you were talking about the elimination rate, for whatever reason, it's based upon, and I think you went through this, somebody's height, weight, did they eat, what did they eat, how long ago did they eat, and things like that, correct?
Correct. There are many factors that go into it.
All right, and to say a number would be almost, well, you would be guessing on a certain individual, right? Unless you took that all into consideration and figured out the best you could.
As I stated, it's just an average that for an adult female. So it's just an average of many people over many studies.
It could be somebody, weighing 200 pounds, somebody weighing 90 pounds, and they're just taking an average, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Somebody that ate, somebody didn't, taking an average, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. When you did this testing, and you have these, are they called columns? You do the testing, are they columns that it just measures different gases and the level of the gases, and then you can come up with, whatever the 90 tests or 30 tests are that come back?
So the columns in the instrument that's what the sample goes through, and that separates out the volatile compounds, so then we can individually quantify all 4 that we're looking for.
Okay, and I've seen some records, and that's, sometimes a little bit of knowledge is bad rather than a lot of knowledge. When you put this sample in, such as in this case, you heat it up or no?
So the instrument will automatically do that. The auto sampler takes the vial into the instrument. It's then put in a heater shaker that agitates it and heats it up, and then the instrument takes the air sample above the blood, and that's what gets analyzed.
Okay. I didn't do well in science or chemistry in school. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So just be patient with me. When it's heated up automatically, or however this instrument works, the gases go up, and as it's collected at different levels, then that's the different gas it is and how strong it is or how concentrated, or am I wrong?
So the air sample above, because it's being agitated, is very, everything's mixed together evenly. It's when it goes through the column that because all these compounds weigh different things, and they have a different likeness for that special tubing I was talking about, and so they tend to go through the detector at different times, and so we know that ethanol comes out at this time and methanol comes out at this time, and so we measure what the detector picks up. And so what the detector will do is if it has these compounds, it will make an actual graph that looks like a peak, and that's what we then measure to find out how much of that compound is there.
All right, thank you. I'm learning. Thank you. All right. So I want to just show you. I'll show the quiet for a moment. May I approach the witness? Sure. Thank you. I was given this, prosecutor has a copy. Please disregard where I wrote state police, and you'll highlight it as just I did it for myself. But what it shows, and if you have a copy of this as well.
Right.
Oh, we got a nice little booklet. All right.
Is this an exhibit?
No, it's not an exhibit
Not
yet.
marked?
It's not, no, it's not yet.
So what is the title of this so that we can identify it for the record?
What would you call this that it has?
So those are the chromatograms from the instruments.
Chromatograms.
Okay.
I'm learning, Judge.
All right.
Chromatograms. All right. What could you go to that section of your file?
Just the chromatograms?
Please.
Yes.
Now, the chromatograms, could you please explain to the jury report what that means, that word?
So the chromatogram is just a fancy word for the picture of the peaks that the instrument has found. So you can actually see the physical peak where the compounds are.
So when you say piece, that piece goes into a graph automatically?
The peak, yes.
Okay. Excuse me. And is that part of the report that automatically is emitted and on a computer or whatever, you can print that out?
Yeah, so these are produced by our instruments, and it is what we use to then write our reports.
And if you could please, I don't know what page, it says 1 of 2 and then it says this.
Yes.
Do you mind going to that, please?
Yes.
Now, these are the compounds that are emitted in the columns. Is that correct?
So these are the readings from the detector after the column has separated the sample into its different compounds.
So the column gets heated automatically, and when it's heated, compounds come up, and then they get emitted, and then they're put eventually into a graph. Am I correct?
Yeah, so the graph is just a picture representation of what the detector picked up after the column has separated the sample into its different components.
And that's automatically done, correct?
Yes, that is done by the instrument and the processing software that we use.
And through the software and the instrument, these graphs are determined, correct?
Yes, they are produced by the instrument. We do process the data and make sure that everything worked correctly and that the processing method did what it was supposed to do.
And what you do is, because it takes so long for the instrument to do this, sometimes you'll set it up and it takes overnight for it to run all these compound tests or whatever, whatever it's called that it does.
Yes, it takes time to run each sample, and as I said, we have about 89 plus or minus samples per run.
And I might have not caught that. How many different compounds are typically tested? Let's say how many different compounds in this test of Ms. Chidester was emitted or in a graft? Or
Are you asking how many compounds were found in this specific sample, or how many do we look for?
in this, how many do you look for?
So we look for a total of 4 different alcohols.
4 different alcohols?
Yes, so an alcohol is just a type of compound in chemistry. So ethanol is your typical beverage alcohol. Methanol, acetone, as some people know as nail polish remover, and then isopropanol, you use to disinfect like a cut.
And are there other things that you're checking for in addition to those 4 types?
The only other thing we're looking for is N-propanol, which is our internal standard, and we expect that to be in every sample.
And you said there's 4 different types of alcohol. I wasn't writing it down. What is one of them? Name one.
Ethanol.
Okay, and is that okay to be in your system, ethanol?
I mean, that could be debatable depending on some people, but that is the beverage alcohol is ethanol.
Okay, and what's the next one? Methanol?
Methanol is another alcohol we look for.
And is that okay for your system, or is that poisonous, or how is that?
Methanol is usually not okay for your system. It can cause blindness. I only know of there's very few cases where we actually see that.
And N-propanol.
That is the internal standard that should never be ingested by a person, and I think maybe 2 cases I know of since I've been there that we've actually found it. So that is the internal standard we use to check to make sure the instrument is running correctly.
All right, then you're going to have to help me out. ISOPROPANOL.
So isopropanol, you can buy it in the drugstore. It's used as a disinfectant.
And acetone?
Yes, acetone, as I said, nail polish remover, or sometimes you may find in a diabetic, especially if they're having issues. So that is why we look for that one.
And is it just, is acetone, I'm just trying to understand a little bit more, is that going to be in your system, acetone?
I don't believe it's ideal. I don't think it's necessarily poisonous at low or trace levels, but it's not ideal.
Can it have effects depending on the amount of duration and exposure?
I would imagine so, yes.
Is it sometimes concentrated amount used as a solvent?
Yes.
Used in industries?
Yes.
Solvent. What level of acetone are you showing in your records that Ms. Chidester had from the 2-pound gas
So, let me check my notes. I found it was below our calibration curve, so it was not a reportable acetone, but I did find 0.002, so it was a very trace amount of acetone in this sample.
Well, do you have this record that shows acetone?
Yes, I do. So that is a picture of the acetone peak blown up, so you can see details of the peak more, but the measurement is on page 1, and that's where it shows that it is a very small amount.
What number is down below when the peak started?
So those numbers are actually time.
Okay, and then the number up on top of the peak.
That is the exact retention time, so the time that the detector knows that that is acetone because it came out at that specific time.
And that confirms that it's acetone, right?
Yes.
And acetone can, it can develop how with blood? What would cause acetone to start going up in someone's system?
So as I said, sometimes we'll find it in diabetics. Sometimes some people will actually have ingested it. I know of one case that was an unfortunate attempted suicide where we found acetone at higher levels. But as I said, this level is way below our reportable level, so it's very trace.
But it is reported on this sheet at least, right? It's showing.
It's listed on there because the detector found some, but it's not on the report because it was not reportable.
Now, acetone, if blood is fermented, is acetone developed? Do you agree?
I don't know of fermentation causing acetone.
Have you ever studied that area?
I have not.
You would have nothing to disagree if an expert or somebody came in and said that acetone will cause, as a result of fermentation of the blood.
I know fermentation can cause ethanol. I don't know of fermentation causing acetone.
But you've never studied that area, correct?
Not of fermentation causing acetone, but I have studied fermentation causing ethanol.
But in effect, you had no comment with regard to it causing higher. Is that correct? You didn't study it?
Acetone specifically, no.
Acetone. You didn't study it, you said, correct?
No.
Okay, so you really can't make a statement one way or another. You're being honest about it, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you go back to look at that page, please, that I had shown you in your records, it's pretty high up there, don't you agree? And I'm looking at this page, the acetone. Doesn't it look pretty high up there?
So it appears high up because that peak is being zoomed in on, so that way we can properly make sure that it is integrated correctly and that, so those peaks themselves are blown up, but if you look at the big peak, on the big picture on page 1, you will see that it's actually a very small peak, even spike, to where you can barely see it compared to the other peaks in the sample.
And then when I look at methanol, which is next to it, there's nothing in there, right? It's not dark.
Correct.
Okay. And then if I look at, go ahead.
Isopropanol.
Thank you. You can tell that's how much I deal with that. That's good. You're not showing anything there. No dark peak at all, right?
Correct.
But acetone, you're showing it's there. I mean, you may be, stating, well, it wasn't a lot or whatever, but you're showing it's there, correct?
Well, it's actually only there 3 of the 4 results as well, but in that it looks, because these are blown up peaks that were integrated in the sample.
I got it down. But you're showing it's there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it's showing, you said 3 out of 4?
3 out of the 4 results, yes.
And that's a majority, right?
Yes, but as I said, it's trace.
And having concentrated amounts in your system, you can die from it, correct?
Yes.
Because it can be concentrated amounts in industrial solvent, correct?
Yes, but it would have to be a lot higher than these values.
I understand. And then you said that, what about this nail polish remover, rubbing alcohol? Not you said, I'm gonna ask you. Acetone is found in nail polish remover. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you agree that it's found in rubbing alcohol?
No, that is isopropanol mostly.
You're sure that it's not acetone?
I'm pretty sure because acetone would be very painful if put on a cut. So I do not believe it's included in the store. It says like 98% isopropanol.
And I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
You know what, one real quick question, and I apologize to the court. Your testing is only as good as the subject matter that's delivered to you, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Now I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
Well, I'll start where he finished.
Was there anything about this sample when you first got it that appeared abnormal?
No, it did not.
It appeared as every other sample you've tested?
Yes.
So, just to clarify, these tests on these blood samples, they're run 4 times?
So they're run 2 separate columns and 2 separate instruments, so we end up with 4 results.
Okay. The 4 results in this case, were they congruent? Were they similar?
Yes, part of our quality control is that all 4 results have to meet within a certain percentage of the average, otherwise the sample is repeated.
Okay. And so they were within that certain percentage in this case and didn't have to be repeated?
Yes.
Mr. Clovis spent a lot of time on acetone. Is there a way that acetone can affect the ethanol reading?
No, because our instruments are very specific with the alcohols, and so the column's job is to separate those compounds out so that the ethanol reading is ethanol, the acetone reading is acetone.
You might have to correct me, but I think you testified that the test showed 0.0002.
Yes.
Is that correct, for acetone?
Yes.
So you don't say of what, though. So because usually it's like nanograms per milliliter or something like that. So what does 0.0002, what of what?
So that's grams per deciliter, which is the same units as ethanol from when you're reading it from the instrument. So it is, so it'd be 0.002 grams of acetone per 100 milliliters of blood.
Okay. What would it have to be for you to report it?
We don't start recording acetone until 0.01.
I can't do the math on how many points that have to go up then. No further questions, Ms. Faust, thank you.
Recross.
Thank you, Judge. Now, you said you don't start reporting it until 0.01, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's what you follow, what you do in your lab is 0.01, that's what you follow, right?
That is where our calibration curve starts. So anything below that, we cannot guarantee the accuracy of the number because we don't look that low.
All right, and then if blood is not preserved properly and it ferments, does that cause an accurate or not an accurate test result for you?
Objection, it's outside the scope.
It is outside the scope of redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know.
All right, may this witness be excused.
Not for the people, we'd like her to remain as a potential rebuttal expert.
Okay, all right. You're done for now, but you're not off the hook.
Okay.
Next witness.
Judge, people call Samantha Beecham on the Michigan State Police Department.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do.
Would you state your name for us and then spell your last name, please?
Yes, my name is Samantha Beecham, B as in boy, E-A-U-C-H-A-M-P.
Yes.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Beecham, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you do for a living, ma'am?
Currently, I am a supervisor in the toxicology unit at the Michigan State Police Lansing Laboratory.
How long have you been a supervisor?
Been a supervisor since April of 2022.
And how long have you worked in the Michigan State Police Crime Lab overall?
I've been there since October of 2008, so about 16 years. And I started as a forensic technician and then was interviewed and promoted to forensic scientist in August of 2009.
Prior to working at the Michigan State Police Crime Lab, did you have any employment in your field?
Not in my field, no.
What did you do before you worked at the crime lab?
I worked in a plant biochemistry laboratory at Michigan State University.
So it was still in a hard science, it just wasn't in forensic science or forensic toxicology?
Correct.
How long did you work there?
About 6 weeks from graduation till employment at MSP.
Okay. So more or less you started at the crime lab right out of college?
Yes.
You mentioned your university. What education did you have to receive to hold your position?
I have a bachelor's degree of chemistry and molecular biology biochemistry, actually from Goshen College in Goshen, Indiana.
So your current position, I think you said supervisor in the crime lab, but
Did you indicate you're a forensic scientist or forensic toxicologist?
Yes, I'm a supervisor of the toxicology unit, not the whole lab, with experience as a forensic scientist in that unit as well.
And do you still engage in the day-to-day duties of a forensic scientist?
Some of them I perform a lot less casework, but I do stay up to date on my proficiency testing, and I'm training other people in doing those analyses at the moment.
Okay. So to do that, do you continue to receive training in your field?
Yes.
And what kind of training do you continue to receive?
2 weeks ago, I was at a conference called the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. It's a week-long course. I go to some Society of Forensic Toxicology meetings, as well as the Midwest Association for Toxicology and Therapeutic Drug Monitoring. Those last two I'm members of, and the MAT organization I am a past president of. So I'm involved in researching what I can, presenting at those, and just getting information from others in the field.
Okay. So that type of training, conferences and things like that, about how often do you attend those?
Usually a couple times a year for specific to toxicology training, and then there's always leadership trainings and things like that as well.
So some of them pertain to the day-to-day duties in the lab, and some of them pertain to your leadership role in the lab?
Correct.
To hold your current position, Ms. Beecham, did you receive any specialized training as it relates to performing drug analysis on blood?
Not technically for my current position as a supervisor, but as a forensic scientist, yes. I did a lot of testing other samples that other people have analyzed to make sure that I'm getting accurate results. We participate in proficiency tests, and some of the assays, like the one I will discuss today, I wasn't formally trained in it because I was part of a team that created that. So there's no way for us to get that training, but I am very familiar with all of the steps that we did to make sure that that is a valid method.
And thank you for clarifying and separating between your role as supervisor and your role as scientist. In your role, in order to be able to continue to run tests in the lab, do you have a requirement to continue receiving education in your field?
Yes.
And what is that requirement?
It is, I don't remember exactly how many points, but we have to have a certain amount of points of continuing education, which usually equates to attending the annual toxicology meeting that we put on. We usually would bring in an outside person to give kind of a technical talk at that, attending usually 1 or 2 conferences, and then usually reading a book or literature articles.
And you keep up with all of that?
Yes.
Prior to April 22nd of last year, have you ever tested a blood sample for the presence of drugs? About how many times?
Over the course of my career, I've tested over 40,000 cases for alcohol or drugs, probably about half and half.
Okay. Have you ever been qualified as an expert in forensic toxicology in the state of Michigan?
Yes.
How many times?
I've testified over 185 times, and I've been qualified every time I've been offered as an expert, probably somewhere around 120.
Ms. Beecham, I'm going to show you a document that's been pre-labeled People's Exhibit 21. Could you take a look at it and tell the jury what that is?
There are actually 2 documents stapled together here. The first 2 pages are my CV, or curriculum vitae, and the second 2 pages are those of Diane Bennett.
Well, that's a mistake. Thanks for catching that. The first 2 pages are an accurate reflection of your experience in the field.
Yes.
Judge, people would move to admit this as People's Exhibit 21 minus the extra pages. I'm sorry.
No objection, Your Honor.
People's 21 is admitted. Apologize, Judge, I'm just relabeling it for the court. Okay. Judge, at this time, I move to qualify Ms. Beecham as an expert in the area of forensic toxicology.
No objection, Your Honor.
Court determines this witness is an expert in forensic toxicology. Thank you, Judge. Ms. Beecham, were you working at the crime lab on April 22nd of last year?
Yes.
And did you receive a blood specimen that brought you here to testify in this case?
Yes.
How, through the course of lab protocol, did you come to receive it?
I came into contact with it as our laboratory, once a sample needs a certain kind of test, those just kind of sit in our computer system. It was my turn to do one, so I pulled a batch of cases, and this was one of those.
Okay. And is that case somehow identified by name or number?
Yes.
And what name was associated with this sample?
use a laboratory number mostly through our system, and then also as we're going through looking at the evidence, we make sure that the laboratory number matches the name that was on that paperwork.
And the number assigned to that sample, what name did it match?
It was, I'm probably going to butcher the name, but Marshella Chidester.
So when you procure the sample, is that brought to you? Do you get it from somewhere?
I go to our secure refrigerator and then pull out our technicians will prepare the batch together. So I will pull out the samples that I'm working with, check each of them individually, and then perform my analysis.
That's what happened in this case?
Yes.
And do you check the specimens to make sure they're labeled properly?
Yes.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Do you check the samples for irregularities?
Yes.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Did you locate any?
No.
Did you follow all of the applicable protocol for this sample?
Yes.
So after you received the sample, or procured the sample, I should say, made sure it was properly labeled, documented, and good order, what did you do then?
Then I did an extraction on the blood called a protein precipitation. So I take a small amount of the blood and I put in acetonitrile, which is an organic solvent, and that basically makes all the proteins clump together. Put it in the centrifuge, and I take off the liquid that's on top of that. A small amount of that, then that is in the acetonitrile still, which can't go on our instrumentation, so that gets dried down. And I reconstitute it or re-dissolve it into something that can go on our instrumentation. So I did that and then ran it on the instrument with calibrators and controls, processed that data, it was reviewed by another analyst, and then prepared a report.
Okay. So is that the typical method the Michigan State Police Crime Lab uses to test samples at this time?
Yes.
And you previously testified to it, but you guess you've done this about 20,000 times?
Each drug test is a little bit different. I'm not sure exactly how many of this particular type I've done, but in general, yes.
And all of those tests you performed, they were at the Michigan State Police Crime Lab?
Yes.
Outside of what you've described, does the lab have any protocols in place for this method?
We have different protocols that are things like quality control assurances, are making sure we comply with accreditation requirements, but the specifics about how the sample is tested is what I testified to.
Okay. Beyond what you've already described, is there anything to add about the method and modality that you use to analyze this sample?
We use I didn't speak about the instrumentation, which we use LC-MS-MS, which is liquid chromatography mass spectrometry. Basically, that is a system that the chromatography part will separate the different components that are in that blood sample, and then the mass spectrum helps us to identify what it is.
Can you explain as best you can to people who know nothing about chemistry how that works?
Which part of it? Or all of it?
I guess enough to make folks understand what it is that you do.
The chromatography part at the beginning, basically, it's a tube, and in that tube is some little particles, and based on what the shape of the chromatography part at the beginning, basically, it's a tube, and in that tube is some little particles, and based on what the shape of the molecules are that we're looking for, they're going to interact with those molecules in there differently depending on what it is. So it kind of just travels through there in a liquid, and then the detector part at the end basically shoot some electrons on it, and then you end up with a mass spectrum, which is a kind of a fingerprint. So if a particular compound gets bombarded with electrons, then it's going to split up into pretty consistent pieces each time. So we're looking at like the comparison of what those pieces are.
Okay, thank you. Do you know when you performed the analysis on this sample?
I did it on April 25th, 2024.
And when you perform an analysis of this nature, are there procedures to verify the accuracy of the result?
Yes.
And what are those procedures?
The first thing we do is the beginning of the run is what's called a calibration, which basically teaches the instrument what the different levels of that compound are going to look like. And then, so that's the first 6 samples. We run a negative to make sure that there's nothing in our system that is producing a positive result when it shouldn't. And then we run some cases, and then about every 10 or 15 samples, there's a control where we're checking that calibration. The controls are known samples that we know what the result should be, and we make sure that we put those in place throughout the run to make sure that we are getting accurate results. So those include 3 positive controls, 1 negative control, and then a control that we actually purchase from another company that comes verified at a certain concentration to make sure that our results are accurate.
And that was done in this case?
Yes.
With the testing of this sample?
Yes.
And you indicated during that answer that all the instruments in this case are previously calibrated?
Yes, I calibrated when I ran my batch.
Okay. And everything, when you ran the sample, was in good working order?
Yes.
And Ms. Beecham, these methods that you use to test this blood sample, are they accepted in the scientific community at large?
Yes.
And were you able to obtain a result for any drug from the sample you tested for the defendant in this case?
Yes.
Did you prepare a report regarding that?
Yes, I did.
To make sure I only have one document stapled together this time for you. To show you what's been previously marked People's Exhibit 22. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is a supplemental laboratory report for our laboratory number TX24-5842 for a subject of Marshella Chidester.
And why is it a supplemental report?
The alcohol analysis is always the first report, so anything after is a supplemental report.
Okay. And is that document dated?
Yes.
And it's April 25th, 2024?
So the date on the report is the date that I wrote the report, which was April 26th. I did the analysis on the 25th, but it runs overnight. It has to be reviewed. It takes a day.
Okay. And you signed that document?
Yes.
And does that meet the criteria for reporting for the Michigan State Police Crime Lab?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, people would move to admit Exhibit 22, supplemental report prepared by Samantha Beecham.
Response.
No objection.
People's 22 is admitted.
And Ms. Beecham, if you could read off your report to the jury what the result was for the drug analysis run on defendant's blood sample.
I detected and quantified gabapentin at 1.3 micrograms per milliliter.
And Ms. Beecham, do you know what gabapentin is?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what it is?
Yes, it is a medication that's often sold under the brand name of Neurontin. It can be used for things like seizure disorders. It can be used for pain relief. There's a couple other off-the-label instructions for things that can be prescribed for, but those are the 2 main ones, seizures and pain.
And what does it have a drug classification?
Yes, it is considered an analgesic, it is a central nervous system depressant, which means that it has the ability to slow down the nervous system.
Okay. If I could grab Exhibit 22 back from you. And clinically, Ms. Beecham, can you say whether gabapentin has any noted interactions with alcohol?
It can. It depends a lot on the individual, their dosage, how frequently they use alcohol and the gabapentin at the same time. But alcohol is also a central nervous system depressant, so it wouldn't negate those effects.
So would it be fair to say that consuming the 2 together could exacerbate their effects?
Correct.
No further questions, Judge.
Cross.
Good morning, if it's still morning. My name is Bill Colobus, and I'm the attorney representing Marshella Chidester, the defendant in this case, okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you a few questions. You know, when attorneys say that, it's usually, 20, but I'll try to keep it very, very short, okay?
Okay.
All right. And then just keep your voice up for the court reporter and the court to be able to hear you, okay?
Sure.
Thank you. How long was it that you've been working in your role right now?
My current role, almost 2 years.
So at the time that you did this testing that you spoke of, you were doing your job employment-wise for about a year?
As a supervisor, about a year. As a forensic scientist, I've been there about 15.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm going to just jump around for a moment. You had just said in response to the prosecutor's question that this drug can be used for seizures, correct?
Yes.
And it's a lawful drug as long as you have a prescription and you're not overusing it, correct?
It is a prescription-controlled substance, yes.
And you said it's used for seizures. What else is it used for?
It can also be prescribed for pain.
And then you didn't have anything to do with putting any preservative or any particles, substances in the tube prior to the blood going in the tube? Did you have anything to do with that?
No.
Does the company do that, or does the state of Michigan do it?
We contract with a company, and then every time they send us a shipment of those boxes, then we get a certificate of compliance that they put those in there.
Okay, so a private company does it?
Yes.
You don't have anything to do with checking the standards or things like that? You just strictly toxicologist, you do the testing?
Correct.
And the sample, or excuse me, the amount that's given to you or the sample of blood is only as good as the sample it is. Your test is only as good as that, correct?
Yes.
And if there's a flaw in the blood that's given to you, then do you agree that your test results are your results, but they're not accurate?
Depends what the flaw might be. A lot of things, it depends what the flaw would be.
Some are serious flaws, some are not, right?
Correct.
Okay. Why do you said that before you tested the sample, excuse me, on the 25th of April of 24, where did you get it from? Where was it?
It was in a refrigerator.
Okay, why is it in the refrigerator?
We keep things in the refrigerator for two reasons. One, it slows down if there is any growth. We keep all of our evidence in there, so urine bottles are not preserved at all. So we keep everything in the refrigerator in case there's any growth of bacteria. It will slow that down, and it also slows down the degradation or the decrease of different drugs that we may be looking for in the future.
Does it slow down, I use the word fermentation too?
It can if fermentation were even happening.
And you said, and that's interesting, a urine sample does not have to be refrigerated.
It is refrigerated. It does not have any preservatives in the bottle.
Okay. And the blood is supposed to have preservatives in the tubes?
Yes.
And there's two tubes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you did a test on this, correct?
Yes.
On this blood that you spoke of with the prosecutor, right?
Yes.
And then it had a result of what?
It was 1.3 micrograms per milliliter of gabapentin.
For us not scientific people, what would be micrograms per milliliter?
It's just a concentration that we use. So a lot of drugs are nanograms per milliliter, which is a billionth of a gram. This drug is such that we report it in micrograms, which is a millionth with an M of a gram.
So when you check the concentration of it, and you say 1.3, if it was nanograms, it would be 1.3 billion, correct?
If I were reporting my result in nanograms, it would be 1,300 nanograms per milliliter.
It's a minute amount if you check that, correct? If you went by that scale.
I went by the scale that I measured, so it's a concentration.
So if you go by 1.3, and the UG stands for what?
Micrograms.
The ML stands for what?
Milliliters.
And micrograms, again, at least so I can understand it, micrograms is, what's the millionth of what?
It is one microgram is 1 millionth of a gram.
1 millionth of a little tiny gram.
A gram is actually like a handful.
And it's 1 millionth of that.
Yes.
And you never interviewed my client, am I correct?
Correct.
And you never saw my client at all. You said you never interviewed her, but you've never seen her, would you say, other than today?
Correct.
You never sat down and talked with her and asked her any questions?
I have not.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think pretty good, Judge. Did you get a chance to talk with the prosecutor or anybody from their office prior to today?
Yes.
When did you do that?
I'm not sure the exact day. It was one day last week. Okay. Maybe Wednesday.
And you didn't talk to anybody prior to that?
I don't think about anything specific. I may have, told them that I had a subpoena. I was supposed to be at a training this week, so we discussed logistics, those sorts of things.
And were you moved to today instead of another day this week?
I believe I was always going to be today.
And you and the other toxicologist, you both drove up here together?
Injection
Did you, and then I'm going to ask her a follow-up question. It's just, did you drive up here together from Lansing, right down here?
I'll take the answer. I'm not sure how relevant it is, but.
Did you drive together from Lansing today?
With Ms. Faust, yes.
And did you discuss court at all today?
We discussed logistics, who was going to testify first, what we had with us. I haven't seen her much since I've been out of the office. We didn't discuss specifics about this particular case or what we would testify to.
I don't have any other questions, Judge.
Redirect. Very briefly.
So, just, stupid math question. 1/1,000,000th of a gram is the kind of a number that Mr. Clovis said, but that's for every single gram of the body, is that right?
Correct.
He asked you some questions about the cold storage at the lab, and you gave an answer that just in regards to fermentation, if any fermentation was happening. Could you expand on what you mean by that?
Yes, every sample is not going to be fermenting. So if fermentation were happening, if you're going to make wine or beer, that needs to not be done in a refrigerator. That will slow down that process significantly. So if there were fermentation happening, you would want it to be slowed down in a refrigerator, but not to say that it was in this case.
Okay. No further questions?
Any requests?
Just 1 second. I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
All right, may this witness speak, excuse me.
From the people, well, no. We'd like her to remain as a potential expert rebuttal witness.
All right, you're all set for the time being.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Judge, people have no further witnesses. People rest their case in chief at this time.
All right. Your Honor, did you approach her?
Yeah, why don't you approach?
Okay, thank you, sir.
We're going to take a little bit of a break, so if you'll follow Deputy Huff, and we'll be back in a few minutes. You may be seated.
People of the state of Michigan versus Marshella Chidester.
Be seated, please. All right, so the people have arrested. Do you have a motion you wish to make?
Yes, Your Honor. It's a motion for directed verdict with regard to the proofs the court heard, all proofs of trial testimony and all the evidence. Your Honor, we ask that the directed verdict of not guilty be raised on accounts based on, well, first is that the alcohol tested was had acetone, and acetone is a fermented, actually can be deadly solvent sometimes, which in my opinion, it produces inaccurate results. I understand, Your Honor, totally that the expert said that those were accurate results. Number two is that the search, that the warrant was not proper. And I don't arguing this, but I'll just refer to our prior arguments. I did do a rehearing motion to drop off. I can't vote things in because it was a late hour yesterday. I dropped it off the board with regard to the prosecutor that signed and approved. So there was ex parte communication there, knowing that I was representing them. So that we asked that that be stricken. And also, it being, we argued this before, so I just refer to our prior motion and ask for a directed verdict based upon part of that reason, is that it was private property membership only. Anything with alcohol would be excluded. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge. As to Mr. Clovis's last 2 points, those are motions that have already been decided by the court. Ruled against. I don't think those are valid bases for a directed verdict. As to the first tenet of Mr. Clovis's argument, that's for an expert to say, Judge. Mr. Clovis's opinion doesn't merit the court's time in that round.
Your Honor, there was one third one, and I apologize, that there's been no proofs whatsoever that there was any type of specific intent or any type of intent by my client, which is required for second-degree murder. Thank you.
All right, you can address that, sir.
I'm sorry?
All set now?
I'm all set, I apologize, yes.
So, judges, as our response, people have established date, venue, and the idea of the defendant. Beginning with counts 3 through 9, the court was able to view the body-worn camera from Sergeant Pomia, Deputy Karina. Defendant acknowledged her operation of the vehicle in both videos. The blood and gabapentin came in without objection. They showed the defendant's level of intoxication at a .18. They also showed the presence of gabapentin at 1.3. The court would have to refer to the report for the numerical value. The medical examiner's report, which were both stipulated exhibits, established the cause and manner of death for the victims, Zayn and Alanah, that both died as a result of multiple blunt force trauma as a result of a car collision. The medical records, which were stipulated to, and beyond even that, the stipulation that the named victim's injuries rise to the level of a serious impairment under the statute, those were stipulations. So for victims Diana Medina, Ted Smothers, Zayn Phillips, Mariah Dodds, and Leah Stiff, those are all stipulated to as the result. So you've got operation, intoxication, date, venue, and the resultant injury. There's also ample evidence of causation, but for the defendant's operation of the vehicle, none of those things would have happened. So for those reasons, people think they've made a sufficient showing on counts 3 through 9. As to counts 1 and 2, people incorporate the proofs previously noted, and that the named victims died as a result of the defendant's actions. The people established in the court that the defendant knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would be the likely result of her actions. Specifically, the defendant possessed a blood alcohol content of 0.18, the legal limit being 0.08, the high BAC limit or super drunk limit being 0.17. The defendant acknowledged to Deputy Karina that she believed she was a 7 out of 10 for intoxication. Maybe more importantly, though, is that she should not be driving. In the Michigan Supreme Court case 1998, People versus Goki, the Supreme Court found that there were certain factors that a finder of fact may consider to support a charge of second-degree murder. And they relied somewhat on the Michigan Appellate Court case of People v. Aldridge, in which a defendant operated her vehicle at an excessive speed. In that case, it was 45 miles an hour in a parking lot, and excessive speed was held to be a factor that the finder of fact could consider in determining second-degree murder versus a different type of charge. The defendant left the scene of a property damage accident in this case. That was a crash she caused by backing out of her driveway. In the unreported case of People versus Del Piano, it's a 2012 case by the Michigan Court of Appeals, can be found in Westlaw 304-6157. That case found leaving the scene of a property damage accident prior to causing a death to be a tenet that the court could use to determine the second-degree murder support. And finally, Judge, the Gecki case, the Supreme Court case, notes that in all cases of this nature, in order to sustain the intent element of second-degree murder, the incident should have an overall egregiousness factor. Here, people point out the defendant's high BAC, not only twice the legal limit, but above that. Also, the gabapentin in her system. She acknowledged to Karina she was intoxicated, scoring herself a 7 out of 10. She left her home in that condition, knowing she was traveling to a small child's birthday party. For those reasons, Judge, people think they've satisfied the intent element for second.
All right, thank you. Last say so, Mr. Phillips.
By analogy, I argue if somebody sees a yellow light, and this is in relation to intent. Somebody sees a yellow light, they choose to speed through the yellow light, and there's a crash. And that's stop. That's intent. And that would be the type of intent in this case. It lacks in the intent because she didn't choose to do, whatever they claim she attempted to do is murder somebody. Absolutely not. If anything, that's the furthest of what took place. She didn't even understand what happened, whether it be spasms or whatever.
All right, thank you. So the court is required to review all of the testimony that's been taken in the light of, in favor of the prosecution, making a determination whether there is a sufficient case to send the matter to the jury to make a decision. Let me address some of the preliminary issues. First of all, the testimony and everything we saw, it's clear that this happened in an area that was accessible to the public. In fact, taking a look at those photos, you really can't tell where the road stops and the parking lot begins, but clearly it is all accessible to the public. Second of all, the question regarding the warrant, I ruled on that yesterday. I acknowledge receiving what was called a rehearing, but the allegation was made that an attorney from the prosecutor's office had ex parte communications with the magistrate. That is a serious allegation, and without any support, I find it's a reckless allegation. And when I take a look at what was attached as an exhibit, prosecutors sign off on these all the time. In fact, every one I've ever seen, prosecutor signed off on. This prosecutor signed off the day before the affiant signed it. There's nothing in here that shows there's been any contact whatsoever with between the prosecutor and the magistrate. So that leaves us really with the charges themselves, what I consider more the core issues. As it pertains to the second-degree murder charge, the elements, as it pertains to both children, is that the defendant caused the death of those children, that they died as a result of the defendant knowingly creating a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that the death of such harm would likely result from her actions, and by driving while intoxicated or recklessly under the influence of alcohol or gabapentin. Second, that the defendant had one of these three states of mind. She intended to kill, which is the intent question the defense raises. She intended to do great bodily harm. Or the third one, she knowingly created a very high risk of death or great bodily harm, knowing that death or such harm would likely be the result of the actions. And I do find that the testimony supports all of the elements for second-degree murder. The Goki case is exactly on point. We have an overall egregiousness here, at least the argument would be, and certainly it's for the jury to decide. We have a blood alcohol of 0.18, which has been admitted. The issue of the acetone, that's for the jury to decide. We have a high BAC. We have the use of gabapentin with the alcohol. And then we have the video showing the defendant backing out of her driveway and running into the neighbor's car. Maybe that should have been the time to kind of keep an eye on things, but then charging forward all the way through the building. As it pertains to the operating while intoxicated causing death, the elements are different, but it has to do with the intoxication, and clearly the evidence is in, at least for the jury to decide that she was operating with an alcohol content of 0.18. Further, that it caused the death of both Zayn and Alanah. As to the other charges, those are all operating while intoxicated, causing serious injury. I've mentioned the intoxication, I've mentioned the operation, and there's been no contesting of the injuries. For all of those reasons, a motion for directed verdict is denied. You bring the jury in, please. You may be seated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate that. The people have rested, and because, just like I said yesterday, sometimes the logistics of getting witnesses where they need to be, we're going to send you home early for lunch, and we're going to come back. I'm going to ask that you be back in the jury room at 1:15, and the defense will put on a portion of their case at that time. I'm going to remind you that you're not to discuss this case with anyone, including each other, and again, reminding that once you're in the building, you go directly to the jury room, and I would ask that you be in the jury room at 1:15 sharp. Thank you for your hard work this morning. We'll see you this afternoon. You may be seated. All right, so we are going to go back on the record at 1:15 sharp. For those of you, I have another matter that I have to handle at 1 o'clock, so the court will be operating at 1 o'clock, just not on this case. This will be at 1:15. All right, we're adjourned.
All rise. Back in session. You may be seated.
People of the state of Michigan versus Marshella Chidester.
You ready to go?
Ready to go, Your Honor.
Okay, bring in the jury, please.
Your Honor, it's my witness, officer. Should I go get him or call court officer? He was right outside the door.
You should get it.
Do you want to go there?
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. People have rested, so the case is now with the defense. Your first witness, Mr.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the podium?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can I call Lieutenant Ryan Quinn? Thank you.
I'm going to swear you in again because it was a day or so.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give on this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I'm just going to have you state your name, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Quinn.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. As you already know, probably, it's Bill Clovis, and of course I represent Marshella Chidester, the defendant. We had an opportunity where questions were asked the other day. You recall that, correct?
I do.
Okay. And you're just very lightly to go over, you interpret traffic crash reporters. What is the fancy name for them, the actual name?
Event data recorders or airbag control modules.
Oh, all right. And you download it and then you interpret it like you described the other day, correct?
In this case, Deputy Burkhardt imaged the recorder and I read it.
Okay, all right. And then you go by what's recorded, the images, am I correct?
Correct.
And for lack of a better word, it's like the black box of an automobile.
It is.
Okay. When you described before that it was showing moments before impact, back on April 20th, 24, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, moments before impact, Ms. Chidester's vehicle took off. I mean, first it backed up, and it backed up with force, or driving fast, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then that her vehicle hit a tree, and then also the neighbor's truck, and it knocked down part of a fence or a fence, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you said, according to the data, the vehicle took off and started proceeding straight ahead in the opposite direction of backing up, and picked up speed, for lack of a better word, picked up speed, and probably didn't stop at all, is that correct?
Correct.
Until it actually hit the wall, the outside wall of the boat club, and then went in about 25 feet, right?
Well, after it struck the outside wall, it continued in motion until it struck the wall inside of the venue.
Okay. And then you had testified that the vehicle take off from zero when it got back into drive, and then reached speed slowly of about, 42, 43, 44 miles an hour. Is that correct?
I believe at impact it was 44.3 miles per hour.
All right. You know the numbers better than I do, but you live them. And there was no prior braking until, of course, the vehicle hit a wall or hit something that was stationary.
At a complete stop, yes. Prior braking, the image itself showed that there was no braking. There was a indication on the image that showed part of braking, but also part of 100% throttle.
Okay. And then you had informed me that you were in the hallway, we made small talk for a minute, that when it reaches 70 or more, that's considered what?
Through my training, anything that's 70% or more is considered 100% of throttle.
100%
of throttle.
Throttle, full power throttle.
Yes.
Okay. And there was one stage that you were showing braking and the throttle at the same time. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. Now, would that be indicative of somebody that's having an attack and they're touching the brake and the gas at the same time?
Objection, calls for speculation.
Response. No, from him, not you.
In his years of being a patrol officer, I'm asking him in his years of being a patrol officer, has he ever come across that? I guess is what I'm looking at. Do I need, maybe I need proper foundation?
Let's do that.
Okay, thank you. Officer, how long have you been a patrol officer?
Total amount of years is 35.
Right now is it a lieutenant?
Yes.
How long have you served in the lieutenant capacity?
For 2 years.
And you've never had any, lack of a better word, demerits or anything like that with regard to your job, am I correct?
Oh, I have.
Oh, you have?
Yes,
Come across like you never did.
we call them counseling notices.
Okay, all right, but have you ever had it where you weren't interpreting something properly? Such as what you're testifying to today?
No.
And and you've done, I presume, hundreds, if not thousands, of accident investigations. Would you agree with that?
That's fair.
And have you ever had it where somebody is driving and they put the brake and the accelerator on fully?
I've had experience with operators of vehicles where, and everybody's unique, where some people drive with both feet, where that can cause that type of indication.
Have you ever investigated any cases where somebody has a medical issue, such as a seizure, and both feet go to the ground, or go to the pedal area of brake and gas?
I've investigated many crashes where there's medical issues. However, I'm not really qualified to say whether or not of their actions at the time of the crash. I don't know what happened at the time.
Okay, and I appreciate your honesty. We all do in this room. Thank you. But you're sure that looking at those reports over the years of your experience, that it looked like brake and gas was going simultaneously, at least for a second or two?
Not very much. I'll be quite honest, this is the first time I've seen this in a long time.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. As to this case, does the report indicate of your interpretation that the brake and gas, at least for a second or whatever, was simultaneously?
But that's correct, for half a second.
I don't have any other questions, sir.
Cross?
No cross on that.
All right, may this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant. You're excused. Your next witness?
Thank you. I'm going to go out and hold my clients here.
All right.
Supposed to be here at 1:15.
All right. The name of your witness?
I'm sorry, Kelly Colton.
Okay.
And that's T-H-O-R-N-T-O.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Ma'am. Watch your step. Make sure.
Would you state your full name for the record, please?
Kelly Ann Thornton.
All right, Mr. Phillips.
All right, thank you, Judge. Ma'am, my name is Bill Clovis, and I represent Marshella Chidester that's sitting at the table there. Do you know her?
I do not personally know her.
Oh, okay. I appreciate you coming here today. The schedule sort of got moved up a little bit because the trial's moving along much quicker. So the only people that probably really happy is the jury. So I apologize to all of a sudden from Thursday turned into today. Where do you currently work? And I'm told that you have more than one job.
Verna's Bar and Grill.
Verna's? Okay.
I'm a travel agent.
I'm sorry?
And I'm a travel agent.
Okay. And Verna's, I know you have a cold or your hill right now.
Yeah.
And so thank you again for showing up today. How long have you lived, how long have you worked for Verna's?
Part-time for about 4 years.
Okay. And like, how many days a week do you work?
2.
Okay. And back on April 20th of 2024, last year, do you remember my client coming into your tap room?
Yes.
And about what time would have that been, if you recall?
She got there right when I got there at 11 o'clock.
11?
Yes.
Okay. And was she there with somebody or meeting somebody?
Her friends, Brenda and Peter.
Who were her friends?
Brenda and Peter.
I'm sorry, their last name?
I don't know.
Okay. And have you known them for a while?
As long as I've known of her.
Okay. And on that day, how long did they stay there?
About an hour.
Okay, did they all stay and leave together, or did some stay?
I did not see her leave.
I'm sorry?
I did not see her leave.
Okay, and then what to do is the court reporter will get mad if we talk over one another, because she's got to type that, so I apologize. I'll wait for you, and please wait for me. Do you remember at all what they ate or what my client ate, if she ate anything that day?
I got her a cup of white chicken chili.
White chicken chili?
Yes.
Did she have a sandwich or anything?
No.
Do you have, my clients informed me that you had a fish sandwich or something, but that may not be true, or you just maybe don't remember?
It was not on her bill.
Oh, okay. And was there any alcohol?
A wine and a water.
I'm sorry?
1 glass of wine and a water.
Okay. And do you have like specific detailed recollection of that day, sort of that moment of her being in there? Do you have a good memory on it?
No.
The best you can?
Yeah.
Okay, now, did you remember that 1 glass of wine and that chili soup? Did you remember that by refreshing your memory by looking at something, or did you have your own independent recollection?
My own independent recollection.
Those are just a bunch of fancy words, but we gotta put that on the record. Now, the glass of wine, did she just have 1 glass of wine? Did she have more than that? Did she have anything else to drink other than that water you mentioned?
No.
And did she finish the wine?
I don't recall.
There's a report that was made up by, I believe, an officer, and it said that there was still some wine left. Would that refresh your memory, or you just don't?
Judge, I'm going to object.
I don't know how she would have any knowledge regarding what's in the police report. Additionally, he's referring to hearsay. So.
Also assume something not in evidence. The objection is sustained.
You're absolutely positive that my client didn't have more than one glass of wine?
Absolutely positive that I did not serve her more than one glass of wine. But there's two of us that work on a Saturday morning.
Okay, well, did you see, did there come a time where the police came into the tavern?
Yes.
Okay. About what time did they come in?
6:37.
Okay. Could have it been a little earlier? Or
Saturdays are busy, so.
Okay. And why did they come in?
They said it could or could not be involved with the boat club.
Okay. And did they sort of close the place down, or did they come in and have lunch?
Oh, they came and closed us down.
Okay. And did they close you down for a while?
That night.
Okay. And did they come in with a search warrant?
They did not give us one.
Okay. Well, who else was working with you?
At night, it was Amber.
And you don't remember a search warrant?
Nope.
Would have anybody else met them at the door or talked to them that they would have gave any papers to?
It was me and Amber, and we just called Kelly, and she came right over.
And do you remember that they wanted to look at a receipt of any charges?
We gave them a receipt.
You gave them a receipt?
Yes.
Of who?
Peter, Brenda's, and hers.
I'm sorry?
Peter, Brenda, and hers, because they were all tabled together.
Who's hers?
Oh, Marshella.
Okay. And that receipt, was it a charge, cash, or debit card?
She paid cash, but Brenda and Peter paid with a card. That's why we were able to find it easier in the computer system.
Okay. And do you recall at all how much the bill was?
No.
Do you remember what was on the bill that showed proof of purchase?
I don't understand.
The receipt. What was on the receipt?
Water, a glass of wine, and a cup of soup.
Okay. And I apologize, it's just I have to make a record of this for the jury and the judge. And you may live it and know it, but other people don't. So thank you for your patience. And then did you give the police or the sheriff a copy of the receipt?
Brooke did.
Okay. She made a copy, then she gave it to them.
Well, she printed it off the computer.
Okay. Now, after 11 o'clock and my client left the tavern in Verna's, did she ever come back again that day?
No.
And would you have memory if she did?
Yes, her husband was there about 3 o'clock that day.
Okay. And what was her condition? Well, you said she stayed about an hour?
About an hour.
So she would have left approximately noon?
Well, her ticket, when we printed it off, said she cashed out at 12:15.
12:15?
Yes.
Okay. I will presume that's when she left.
Right.
Okay. And what type of state of mind, how did she seem? Did she seem intoxicated? Did she seem like you and I are talking, completely, sort of sober or whatever? How did she seem to you?
I told you I did not see her leave. Brooke cashed her out.
Okay. Well, how did you waited on her? Correct?
When she first got there, yes.
Okay. Well, you were waiting on her for that approximately hour and 15 minutes. How was her mannerisms? Did she seem like she was drunk, falling down drunk, slurring?
No.
Okay. We weren't there. That's why I'm asking.
No.
This is important. Okay, thank you. Did she seem like she was intoxicated?
No.
Would you served her if she was intoxicated?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Have you taken any training in the state of Michigan or anything concerning that?
20 years plus.
I'm sorry?
At least 20 years.
Okay. And you're sworn to tell the truth today. And you're saying that she was absolutely not intoxicated when she left your premises that day. Is that correct?
I'm not.
This calls for speculation. She's already given her opinion regarding her state.
I think she has answered it. In fact, she said she didn't see her when she left, but she did say she was not intoxicated when she served her.
Thank you. If I could just have one moment. First, I had this earlier, and I apologize for taking the time right now to get this. proceed so we can have this witness move on.
People did sign a stipulation regarding this receipt. Once Mr. Clovis is able to produce it, people will review it. If it's what we
If it's the same, we'll enter. Okay.
Okay, very good, Josh. Just move it along. And I'm sorry, is not prepared on that one. Is there, you still work there?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes,
And who owns it? Is it Kelly? Who?
Kelly Sylvie.
And, well, I don't have any other questions, Your Honor, at this point.
Cross?
Very briefly, Judge. Ms. Thornton, I know this was asked of you a number of times, but you remember Ms. Chidester arriving at 11 o'clock that day, correct?
Approximately, yes.
Approximately, and then she left at approximately 12:15, correct?
I did not see her leave, but that's what time her cash out was.
Okay, gotcha. And do you have any knowledge of if she consumed any alcohol prior to coming to Verna's?
No.
Okay, and you don't know if she drank anything after she left Verna's at 12:15,
Absolutely not.
right?
No.
Okay, that's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
Can you redirect me?
Please, ma'am, she just asked you about drinking prior to, that you don't know if my client drank any alcoholic beverages prior to entering your premises, correct?
No, I don't know.
Did she look like she was intoxicated when she entered your premises?
No.
All right, thank you. No other
All right, may this witness be excused?
please.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That's all we got, right? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but logistics have thrown a wrench in the works. We would have let you know that earlier, but we were really hoping to pull the feet out of the fire there before and have something for you. We do not. So the bad news is we're done for today. The good news is we're done for today. Tomorrow when you come in, and again, I'm going to ask that you be in 8 a.m. sharp. When you come in tomorrow, you'll hear the last one or two witnesses, you'll hear the closing statements, and you'll hear the final jury instruction. So that will happen tomorrow. As always, don't discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anybody else. And again, when leaving the building or entering the building, right to and from the jury room. Appreciate your hard work today. Have a nice